In this video, we're going to go over 100 layouts where you'll need to find a good defensive shot. We'll be going through layouts in 10 ball, 9 ball, and 8 ball. And with each layout, you're going to have a limited time to determine a strong defensive shot. So if you're ready, let's get started. In this video, we're going to go through layouts in 10 ball, 9 ball, and 8 ball. In each layout, try to find a strong defensive shot. Each layout will have a timer, so you'll have a limited time to find a good defensive shot. Here are some tips that may help you as you go through each layout. If you can't find a decent defensive shot, then look for an easy option that has a high percentage of success. These options may not snooker the opponent, but instead leaves them with a difficult shot. If a defensive option requires that the cue ball lands behind a single ball, then make sure this option has a high percentage of success. For instance, in this game of 9 ball, I could slow roll the cue ball and try to leave it behind the 7 ball. Since I'm hiding the cue ball behind a single ball, my speed control has to be very good. Instead, I'll send the 6 ball to the end rail, putting distance between the cue ball and object ball. The goal is to put the cue ball behind the 7 ball, but if I'm not successful, at least I'll be leaving a tough shot. Look for safe areas in each layout. These are areas on the table where your opponent won't have a good offensive shot. For instance, in this layout, if I can leave the cue ball in this area, my opponent will be left with a very low percentage offensive shot. In this layout, a nice safe area would be over here, since even if I don't hide the cue ball behind the 2 ball, my opponent would still have a tough shot on the stripes. You may already be familiar with many of the shots in this video, but there may be a few that are new to you. The goal of this video is to help increase your shot repertoire when it comes to playing defense, which should help you win more games. Try to come up with more than one defensive option if you can for each layout. If you're a lower skilled player, then pause the video until you come up with a defensive shot. Remember to look for safe areas in each layout. A safe area is an area where your opponent will either be snookered or they're going to have a very difficult offensive shot. In this video, we're going to start with 9 and 10 ball layouts. And then later in the video, we're going to move on to 8 ball layouts. In this safety, we could go for a low percentage bank shot, but since the 9 ball is off the cushion, it gives us a nice safe area to send the cue ball toward. If the 9 ball were on the cushion, then this type of safety would become riskier, since there is less chance of landing behind the 9 ball. In this layout, we're going to leave distance between the cue ball and 7 ball by sending the 7 ball to the end rail. Ideally, we would like to use the 8 and 10 ball as blockers on this shot. In this layout, we could thin the 7 ball and hide the cue ball behind the 10 ball, but misjudging the speed even a little bit will give my opponent a nice shot. Instead, I'll send the 7 ball to the other side rail and leave the cue ball near the end rail. In this layout, we could try a low percentage shot on the 7 ball, but a wiser choice is to put distance between the cue ball and 7 ball by sending both balls to each end rail. In this layout, if we're not confident in the bank shot, then just like the last layout, we're going to bank the 7 to the other side rail and send the cue ball toward the 9 ball. When shooting shots like this, really focus on the speed you'll need for the 7 ball. In this layout, we have two good defensive options. The first option is to bank the 7 ball toward the end rail. If it ends up behind the 10 ball, that would be ideal. But even if we don't hide the 7 ball, we still leave a tough shot for our opponent. In this option, we'll be putting the cue ball behind the 10 ball. The difference in the two shots is that if we don't hide the cue ball, we may leave an offensive shot for our opponent. In this layout, we have a nice safe area over here. We could play this type of safety, but it requires a thin hit on the 7 ball, which means the 7 ball may end up close to the corner pocket. So misjudging the safety will leave an easy shot. A safer option is to send the cue ball 4 rails to our safe area. This allows us to strike more of the 7 ball, moving it away from the corner pocket. Another option is to bank the 7 ball to the end rail. These types of shots take a lot of practice since you really have to control the speed of the object ball. Sometimes the best defensive shot is the one that has a high percentage of success, even if it means we don't lock up our opponent. For instance, in this layout, if we softly strike the 7 ball, the cue ball will head to the end rail, leaving a tough shot. A bonus would be that the 9 ball comes off the cushion and lands between both balls. In this situation, we have a tricky shot on the 7 ball. A common shot that comes up in layouts like this is to bank the object ball 5 rails to the other half of the table, while putting the cue ball near the end rail. This defensive shot is easier than you think once you get the hang of it. The great thing about this shot is that the cue ball naturally heads to the end rail with a little top spin. Here's a simple safety that comes up quite often and is fairly simple to execute. We'll be striking above center and really focusing on landing the cue ball between the cushion and 8 ball. In this situation, the goal is to strike the 7 ball, banking it around the 8 ball. This shot takes focus, since striking the 7 ball too thin or too thick could result in leaving the opponent a shot. But if you take your time, it's a defensive shot that is very repeatable. In this layout, we can try pocketing the 7 ball, but shaping the 8 ball is extremely difficult. So in this shot, we're going to send the 7 ball to the end rail and send the cue ball to the opposite end rail, leaving a tough shot. A bonus would be hiding the cue ball behind the 9 or 10 ball. Here's a similar defensive shot. In this shot, we're going to bank the 7 ball off the side rail and try to leave the cue ball on the end rail near the 8 ball. Here's a nice safety that's very repeatable once you get the hang of it. The goal in this shot is to bank the 7 ball to the left end rail and send the cue ball around the 9 and 10 ball. Make sure when you try this shot that you are striking the cue ball with maximum high. In this safety, similar to a previous safety, we're going to be banking the 7 ball to the other side rail and at the same time trying to put the cue ball near the 8 ball, forcing a kick shot. In this layout, we have 2 good options. The first option is a half ball hit, sending both balls to the side rails. The goal is to use the 9 and 8 ball as blockers. The benefit of defensive shots like this is that even if you don't have perfect speed control, you're probably still going to leave your opponent a difficult shot. The second option is to send the cue ball 3 rails, landing near the 10 ball. When performing this shot, make sure you don't overuse the right spin, which shortens the angle off the top side rail, sending the cue ball toward the bottom side rail instead of the end rail. In this layout, we have a nice safe area over here if we can bank the 6 ball to the left end rail. So in this shot, we're going to bank the 6 ball, sending the cue ball around the 10 ball. By doing this, we should leave our opponent a difficult shot. A bonus would be snookering them behind the 8 or 10 ball. Here's a nice shot that has a lot of room for error. In this shot, we're going to send the 6 ball to the side rail and send the cue ball to the end rail. The 7, 8, and 9 ball make for nice blocker balls. It's important that you're able to recognize when you are faced with a natural safety. In this layout, if we bank the 7 ball to the right end rail, the cue ball will naturally float to the side rail and toward the end rail. The ideal shot would be to hide the cue ball behind the 8 ball. The goal in the shot is to bank the 7 ball 2 rails away from the corner pocket. If struck properly, the cue ball will head to the other end rail, leaving a tough shot for the opponent. In this layout, we could go all out for the bank shot, and if you're good at banks, this is an excellent option. If you don't trust your bank shot, then you can go for a defensive option, where you'll be slicing the 8 ball and sending the cue ball 4 rails to the right end rail. In this situation, you can go all out for the offensive shot, pocketing the 8 ball in the corner pocket, or you can play defensive shot by sending the 8 ball to the end rail. This shot requires practice since you really need to control the speed of the 8 ball. At this angle, the cue ball will float behind the 9 ball. In this layout, the goal is to bank the 3 ball 2 rails toward the other end rail, and at the same time leave the cue ball by the right end rail. If you have a ball near the end rail, like the 8 ball, you can attempt to put the cue ball behind it, which would be a bonus. In this layout, a nice defensive shot is to strike the 7 ball thin, sending the cue ball 3 rails, landing behind the 8 ball. This shot requires practice since striking a bit too much of the 7 ball may leave your opponent an easy shot. If you don't have full confidence in your ability to pull off this shot, then an easier option is to just bank the 7 ball to the side rail. Here's a nice safety that is easy to repeat over and over again. In this shot, we're going to send the 8-ball to the end rail and land the cue ball near the side rail. If struck correctly, you should be able to snooker your opponent. Here's a nice safety that takes a bit of practice, but once you have it down, it will help you win a lot of games. In this situation, we could try a low percentage cut shot, and if you're confident in this shot, then it's worth the risk. If you don't want to try the shot, then try the defensive shot where you'll be banking the 8-ball 2 rails to the middle of the table, and at the same time, you'll be sending the cue ball toward the side rail by the 9-ball. This shot not only leaves distance between both balls, but there is the added bonus of a possible snooker. Here's a similar situation. If we don't feel confident in the cut shot, we can bank the 8-ball to the other end rail and try to land the cue ball behind the 9-ball. A touch of left spin will help kill the cue ball's speed when it strikes the side rail. In this layout, we have 2 good options. The first option is to strike the 5-ball, sending both balls to the side rails. This is a good option in that if you don't hide the cue ball, you're not leaving an easy shot. The second option is to strike the 5-ball thinner, sending the cue ball behind the 8-ball. This is a safe option since if we don't hide the cue ball, the 6-ball is blocking the corner pocket. In this scenario, we're once again going to put distance between the cue ball and object ball. When we shoot the 6-ball, we're going to send the cue ball to the end rail using high action. If we strike this shot at the proper speed, the 6-ball should end up near the other end rail. Ideally, we would like the cue ball to end up behind the 7-ball. In shots like this, you're probably not going to hide your opponent. The goal in layouts like this is to just leave a difficult shot. So in this layout, we're going to strike the object ball and send the cue ball 3 rails, landing near the other 3 balls. By doing this, we have the chance of hiding the cue ball or landing near a ball, which makes the opponent's shot play a little tougher. This safety requires a thin hit with plenty of right spin. The goal is to strike the bottom side rail between the first and second diamond, which will send the cue ball to our safe area behind the 7 and 6 ball. In this shot, we have a nice safe area here. So the goal is to bank the 6 ball into this area while leaving the cue ball near the left end rail. Since we don't want the cue ball traveling too far and leaving a shot, we're going to be using a touch of right spin to help slow the cue ball's progress. In this shot, if we just send the 6 ball to the bottom side rail, we should leave our opponent a tough shot, since the 7 ball blocks the bank shot for the side pocket. In this shot, the 7 and 10 ball make a nice little wall to put the cue ball behind if we can send the 6 ball to the end rail. On this shot, it's easy to underhit the shot and not have the 6 ball reach the cushion, so take your time and make sure you have your speed locked in before shooting. This is a common defensive shot and similar to a few of the shots we've seen before. We're going to bank the 6 ball to the other end rail and leave the cue ball near the first diamond of the side rail, using the 7 and 8 as blockers. In 10 ball games, there are usually 2 or 3 balls near the rack area, so it's important to become skilled at sending the cue ball behind these balls. A good option here is to send the cue ball 4 rails landing behind the group of balls in the rack area. The 9 ball acts as a blocker for the corner pocket. In this shot, the goal is to bank the 5 ball away from the bottom left corner pocket and land the cue ball in our safe area up here. When playing shots like this, you should assume that you may not snooker your opponent, so really focus on making sure the 5 ball is away from the corner pocket. Here's a similar layout, except this time the 7 ball is away from the side rail. This gives us the option of sending the 5 ball to the end rail and putting the cue ball behind the 7 ball. In this shot, we could try a difficult shot on the 5 ball, but even if we made it, we would be stuck with a tough shot on the 6 ball. Instead, we can cut the 5 ball toward the side rail and send the cue ball to the other side rail. A bonus would be to use the 7 ball as a blocker ball. In this layout, we could try to pocket the 5-ball into the corner pocket, and if you're confident in this shot, it may be worth the risk. If you're not confident in the shot, then we have a nice 2-rail bank shot on the 5-ball, while sending the cue ball to the end rail behind the 10 and 7 ball. We'll be using a touch of left spin to help slow the cue ball's speed. In this layout, we have two defensive options. The first option is to strike the 5-ball thin and send the cue ball to the end rail. On this shot, your opponent may see a piece of the 5-ball, but they won't have much of a shot. Another option, and one that takes practice, is to strike the side rail across from the 5-ball with running English, which in this case is right spin. When the cue ball strikes the cushion with a right spin, it widens the angle, sending the cue ball toward the 7 ball. The key is developing a feel for where you need to aim on the cushion. In this layout, we have a nice safety where we'll be sending the 5-ball to the end rail and using the 8-ball as a blocker ball. In situations like this, it's safe to hide the cue ball behind a single ball, since we won't be leaving a good offensive shot if we don't hide the cue ball. In this shot, we have a nice angle in the 6-ball that allows us to send the cue ball off both side rails and toward the end rail. The added benefit of this shot is that the 9-ball will be blocking the corner pocket. The goal in this shot is to leave the cue ball behind the 8-ball, but even if we don't, we still leave a difficult shot. This is another circumstance where a single ball safety is a good option. At this angle, the cue ball will float naturally to the other side of the 8-ball. We can use a little left spin to send the cue ball closer to the 8-ball. In this layout, we have three good options. The first option involves sending the cue ball 2 rails toward the 8-ball. Since we're striking the 6-ball thin, it may end up near the corner pocket. But fortunately, we have a wall of 3 balls to hide behind. The second option is to send the cue ball toward the left end rail. A touch of right spin will help slow the cue ball's progress. A bonus would be to hide the cue ball behind the 7-ball. The third option is the simplest. In this option, we're going to be sending the 6-ball to the side rail using the 9-ball as a blocker ball. In this layout, we have a nice wall of 3 balls that we can hide the cue ball behind. So in this shot, we're going to be banking the 6-ball to the side rail and at the same time, sending the cue ball toward the end rail. In this layout, we have two good options for a defensive shot. The first option is to send the 5 ball to the in rail and follow the cue ball toward the 9 ball. When shooting the shot, it's important we don't leave the 5 ball too close to the corner pocket. The other option is to send the 5 ball to the in rail and bank the cue ball off the side rail and into our safe area. This is a good option since the 5 ball doesn't end up near a pocket. Here's a nice defensive shot in that there's a good chance you should be able to hide the cue ball. The goal in this shot is to bank the 5 ball between both side rails and send the cue ball to the right end rail. This shot is all about developing a feel for how much left spin you're going to need. In this layout, we could play this defensive shot where we're sending the cue ball to the side rail and sending the 5 ball to the end rail. But if it isn't struck perfectly, we could leave a fairly easy shot for our opponent. Instead, we're going to use high action and bank the 5 ball 2 rails to the middle of the table and send the cue ball behind the 7 ball. The key to this shot is really locking in on the angle you're going to need to properly send the cue ball off the end rail. In this shot, we have a nice defensive shot. We're going to be shooting the 5 ball toward the bottom side rail and sending the cue ball 2 rails to the top side rail, using the 8 ball as a blocker ball. This is a nice option in that if you don't hide the cue ball, your opponent still has a tough shot. This shot is similar to a previous safety where we're going to be striking the cushion across from the 5 ball with running English, which in this case is left spin. Once the cue ball strikes the 5 ball, it caroms toward the cushion, and the left spin sends it toward the 8 ball. On this shot, we're going to be banking the 5 ball 3 rails toward the right end rail, and at the same time, we're going to be sending the cue ball toward the 9 ball. This is a great shot since we're putting a great deal of distance between both balls. Here's another defensive shot where we're going to be putting distance between both balls. On this shot, we're going to be banking the 5 ball around the 6 ball area and sending the cue ball toward the end rail near the 8 ball. Ideally, we would like the cue ball to end up behind the 8 ball, but if it doesn't, we may still leave a tough shot. On this shot we have a nice safe area over here. The 6, 8, and 9 ball create a nice wall which gives us room for error when playing this shot. This is a common type of safety where we're sending both balls to opposite end rails. When performing defensive shots like this, always look for blocker balls that you can hide the cue ball behind. In this case, a 9 ball would make a great blocker ball. This safety is fairly simple to pull off once you practice it. In this shot, we're going to bank the 9 ball to the end rail and send the cue ball to the side rail. The goal is to use the 10 ball as a blocker ball. If we don't completely hide the cue ball, we're still leaving a difficult shot. In this shot, we can go all out for the bank shot, or we can play a defensive shot and let our opponent try a high-risk offensive shot. In this shot, we're going to be banking the 9 ball 4 rails to the right end rail. The cue ball will be naturally sent toward the 10 ball. On this shot, we're going to be banking the 8 ball 2 rails toward the left end rail. This shot is all about controlling the speed of the 8 ball. On this shot, we can try cutting the 5 ball in the corner pocket and going around the table for shape on the 6 ball, but this shot is extremely difficult to pull off. Instead, we're going to bank the 5 ball off the side rail and send the cue ball to the opposite end rail. A bonus would be to hide the cue ball using the 7 or 8 ball. On this shot, we're going to bank the 5 ball and use high action to send the cue ball behind the 6 ball. If struck properly, you can really lock up your opponent. On this shot, we have two good defensive options. The first option takes a bit more skill in that we really need to control our speed since we'll be using a stun shot. On this shot, we're going to bank the 5 ball off the side rail and send the cue ball behind the 8 ball. The second option is to softly roll the 5 ball to the side rail and land the cue ball on the other side of the 10 and 7 ball. This option is a little easier to control the speed and is very repeatable. On this shot, one option is to shoot the 5 ball toward the side rail and float the cue ball behind the 9 ball. If you're comfortable with the speed of the table, this is a good option. If you're not comfortable trying to land the cue ball behind the 9 ball, then another option is to bank the 5 ball toward the end rail and use the 7 and 9 as blockers. In this shot, I could try to bank the 4 ball and place a cue ball behind the 6 ball. This shot is a bit risky since our speed control would have to be very good, otherwise we're going to leave our opponent a shot. Instead, we'll strike the 4 ball thin with right spin and send the cue ball 4 rails to the left end rail. This shot puts distance between both balls, plus there's a good chance we may be able to hide the cue ball behind the 7 ball. On this shot, we have a nice safe area over here if we can leave the 4 ball along the side rail. So we'll shoot the 4 ball thin with right spin, sending the cue ball to the top side rail on the other side of the side pocket. In this layout, we're going to bank the 7 ball toward the 8 ball using right spin on the cue ball. This will send the cue ball to the end rail near the 9 ball. The goal is to use the 8 or 10 ball as blockers, while at the same time putting distance between both balls. In this layout, the 6 ball won't go past the 7 into the corner pocket. But if we carom the 6 off the 7, the 6 ball will head to the other side rail. Knowing this, we can draw the cue ball off the rail, sending it behind the 8 ball. In this layout, we have an offensive shot on the 6 ball, but getting shape on the 7 ball isn't guaranteed. But the 9 ball is close to the 6 ball, which means if we can shoot the 6 ball into the 7, We can slide the cue ball over a few inches, landing behind the 9 ball. In this layout, similar to a previous layout, we're going to carry the 6 ball off the 7, sending it to the middle of the table. Now we can use draw with a touch of right spin to send the cue ball behind the 8 ball. Now we're going to go through some 8 ball defensive shots. In this game, we could try to pocket the 6 ball, but it's a difficult shot and we're not guaranteed a shot afterward. A nice defensive shot here would be to play a stop shot while shooting the 6 ball into the end rail. Here's a shot that comes up quite often in 8 ball. It's a rather simple shot, but still requires practice to develop a feel for how much of the object ball you need to strike. In this shot, we're going to be softly banking the 1 ball a few inches off the side rail and using it as a blocker to hide the cue ball. This shot is all about recognizing where the safe area is on the table. This area over here looks like a nice place to leave the cue ball. So if we strike the 4 ball thin, we can send the cue ball off the side rail and toward this area. In this shot, we don't have any good offensive shots, and it doesn't look like we can play a lock-up safety anywhere. In this situation, we're going to simply play a stop shot. The goal is to leave the 6 ball on the right half of the table, making it difficult for my opponent to leave me a tough shot. In this shot, our opponent has the advantage since they have more balls on the table. So when we play a defensive shot, we need to tie up one of their balls. So in this shot, we're going to be playing the combo, sending the 5 ball to the side rail on the other side of the side pocket. At the same time, we're going to be leaving our opponent safe. In this game, we have a nice safe area over on this side of the table. So we're going to shoot the 9 ball with high action, banking it around the 8 ball, and sending the cue ball off the end rail into our safe area. In this layout, if we can pocket the 7 ball, we have a safe area over here. So we're going to play the combo, striking the 12 ball thin, sending the cue ball back toward the bottom side rail. In this layout, we have a safe area over here by the 6 ball. A good defensive shot is to bank the 6 ball, leaving the cue ball near the end rail. Ideally, we would like the 6 ball to be used as a blocker ball. This is a nice shot in that once you have it down, it's fairly easy to execute and provides a great safety that may win you the game. In this shot, we're going to be using a super soft stroke, striking the 11 ball razor thin. This sends the cue ball off the cushion, ending up alongside the 11 ball. In this shot, the 8 ball is in a nice location to play a safety. We're going to be banking the 11 ball around the 6 ball using right spin on the cue ball. The right spin helps kill the cue ball's speed once it strikes the top side rail. Here is a nice defensive shot. In this shot, the 1 ball is fairly easy to pocket in the top left corner pocket, since the 11 ball makes the pocket play bigger. So in this case, we're going to pocket the 1 ball and send the cue ball to our safe area on the bottom side rail. In this layout, we could play the combo, making the 3 ball in the side pocket, leaving our opponent safe. The problem is that the 7 ball is hanging in the corner pocket, making for a very makeable kick shot. A better option is to play the combo, sending the 3 ball to the side rail, tying it up. The goal in this shot is to leave our opponent a long, difficult shot. Our safe area is over here by the 8 ball, so we can bank the 11 ball, sending the cue ball in this direction. Before shooting shots like this, really lock in on the cue ball's path. In this layout, we could try the cut shot in the side pocket, but we still have a difficult run out since the 12 ball is in a difficult location. Instead of trying a difficult run out, a good option here is to shoot the 13 ball into the 12, freeing it from the side rail, and at the same time sending the cue ball to the side rail by the 11 ball. In this shot, we're going to be banking the 12 ball around the group of balls and sending the cue ball to the other end rail. The idea is to make sure we don't tie up the 12 ball when banking it. Ideally, we would like it to end up close to the corner pocket. In this shot, we could try to go all out and make the 3 ball in the top right corner pocket. This is a risky shot that may lose us the game if we don't make it. Now if we look over here, we have a nice safe area that will work for leaving our opponent a tough shot. In this shot, we're going to be banking the 3 ball to the side rail toward the 5 and 11 ball. In this layout, the goal is to leave our opponent a tough bank shot. And one thing we don't want to do is break out the 6 ball. So in this shot, we're going to be striking the 11 ball thin and leaving the cue ball near the top left corner pocket. In this shot, we could try the combination in the side pocket, but it's not an easy shot, and we still have a problem ball with the 5 ball. A nice shot here is to play a safety by playing the 2 ball into the 5 ball and playing a stop shot, leaving the cue ball behind the 1 ball. In this layout, we have the disadvantage since we have fewer balls on the table. On this shot, we're going to try and land the cue ball in our safe area over here. We're going to be shooting the 2 ball into the 9 ball. By doing this, the 2 ball will block the side pocket for the 12 ball, and at the same time makes the 9 ball play tougher. In this layout, we have a nice safe area over near the end rail. So in this shot, we're going to be striking the 2 ball thin with left spin. This shot takes a bit of practice, but it's definitely a shot you need in your arsenal. In this layout, we have a safe area over here. So in this shot, we're going to be striking the 15 ball thin, sending the cue ball 2 rails to our safe area. In this layout, we could try pocketing the 3 ball in the side pocket, but it's a difficult shot and we're not guaranteed a shot even if we make it. A nice option here is to stun the cue ball over to the side rail behind the 7 and 8 ball. In this layout, we're down to 1 ball. We don't have many good options as far as defensive shots. A good option here is to softly strike the 12 ball and send the 1 ball to the end rail. The goal is to leave the cue ball on top of the 12 ball, giving our opponent a tough shot on their 5 ball. The advantage of this shot is that now both corner pockets are available for the 12 ball. In this layout, we're at a large disadvantage in the game since we're down to 1 ball and it's tied up with the 8 ball. The goal in the shot is to bank the 8 ball 2 rails, blocking the corner pocket while leaving the cue ball at the other end of the table. In this shot, we have a safe area over here by the 9 ball. On this shot, we can call the 9 ball in the corner pocket and at the same time use high action to send the cue ball to the safe area. If we don't make the combination, we're still leaving our opponent safe. The key to this defensive shot is to locate the safe area on the table, which is over here by the left end rail. So when we shoot the 5 ball, we're going to bank it off the side rail, sending the cue ball 2 rails toward this safe area. In this shot, we have a safe area over here, so when we shoot the 3 ball, we're going to be sending the cue ball 2 rails toward this area. We have to make sure we send the 3 ball around the 10 ball, so we're not pushing the 10 ball closer to the corner pocket. In this layout, our safe area is where the 14 ball is, which means all we have to do is softly bank the 14 ball off the rail, leaving the cue ball in the same area. In this shot, we can see the 14 ball, but we're blocked on the 15 ball. The good news is that we can strike the cushion just to the right of the 15 ball. Since this option is available, we're going to strike the right side of the 15 ball when the cue ball comes off the cushion. This will send the cue ball toward the end rail, leaving our opponent tough. An added bonus would be the 8 ball acting as a blocker ball. In this layout, we definitely don't want to break out the 4 ball, freeing up their 14 ball. So in this situation, we're going to bank the cue ball off the end rail and softly strike the 7 ball against the cushion. In this layout, if we can end up around here on the end rail, we should leave our opponent a tough shot. So on this shot, we're going to be using high action and banking the 4 ball to the other side rail. Here's a nice shot that should help you win a few games. In this shot, we're going to strike the 7 ball thin with left spin. When the cue ball hits the end rail with the left spin, it should end up on the other side of the 7 ball. In this shot, we're going to softly send the 2 ball to the side rail, leaving our opponent a tough offensive shot. Our 11 ball is now blocking the corner pocket for the 2 ball. The key to this layout is first finding the safe area, then deciding which stripe will work best to send the cue ball to this area. If we strike the 12 ball thin, we can send the cue ball 2 rails toward this area. In this layout, we could try the combination, but it may be difficult to get a good shot on the 4 ball afterward. If you're not comfortable with this combination, then a nice defensive shot here is to bank the 4 ball around the 11 ball and send the cue ball to the cushion near the 8 ball. In this layout, we could try a difficult combination, but a better option is to strike the 2 ball and send the cue ball to the side rail near the 8 ball. The goal is to use the 8 ball and 5 ball as blocker balls. In this layout, a good safe area is around here if we can block the side pocket. So in this shot, I'll be striking the 2-ball thin, sending it in front of the side pocket. The cue ball should naturally travel towards the 8-ball. On this shot, we could try the bank shot on the 5-ball, but it's a do or die shot. A nice shot here is to just send the cue ball to this area by the side rail near the 2-ball. If we don't hide the cue ball, we're still leaving our opponent a tough shot. On this shot, we first need to find our safe area, which is over here on the end rail. Now we just need to determine how to send the cue ball to this location. If we strike the 5-ball thin with a touch of left spin, the cue ball should head to this area. In this layout, we could strike the 13-ball thin, sending the cue ball to the bottom side rail. This is a good option, but our speed would have to be very good, since we could very easily give up a shot on the 5-ball. Another option is to thin the 13-ball and send the cue ball to this area along the end rail. This shot isn't as speed sensitive. In this layout, we have a few options as far as leaving our opponent a difficult shot. If we can snooker our opponent, that would be the ideal scenario, and could possibly win us the game. In this shot, if we examine the 2 and 8-ball, it looks like if we strike the 2-ball on the right side, it's going to be sent toward this area here, and the 8-ball will be sent toward the side rail. Knowing this, we'll strike the right side of the 2-ball and send the cue ball 2 rails toward the first diamond on the end rail. On this shot, we may not hide our opponent, but just knowing where the 2 and 8-ball are going to be heading after contact means we now have a safe area to use as our target.